Handing a quotation over to contract, i.e. converting quotation to a contract. Initially, only enough information may have been entered onto the system to enable a quotation to be created for a client or potential client. However, once it becomes a contract, more details that weren't available at the time of quoting may be required to allow work to commence. Also, production will need to be made aware of any site conditions that will affect the contract, how many production hours the estimator is allowed, the agreed contract lead time and completion date, what subtrades are required, and who the estimator has obtained prices from, and any required lead-in times from the subcontractors. You also need to ensure that the accounting requirements are in place, such as who and where the invoice is to be sent to, and what terms and conditions have been noted in the accepted quotation. The system will ensure that all of this is set when you convert a quotation to a contract by loading a screen for all the required details to be entered prior to creating the contract from the quotation. An acknowledgement to your client's purchase order may also be added. The production hours from the quotation are easily viewed from this screen as well. So much information at this point is added. Information may still be added or amended once a contract has been created, though. Once created, a project handover document will then be generated detailing who the client is, where the site is, who we're going to invoice, the contract terms, the contract dates, the estimated contract hours, who the subcontractors were allowed for on the estimate, and their lead-in times. Once converted, you'll then be taken straight through to the production status screen where all the bill items are listed, and this enables production to actually amend the estimated scheduled hours, because they might not want to show machining, say the estimator would allow 2.5 hours for a certain operation. They might reduce that to 2 hours. It won't affect the estimated figure though. As we said earlier, contract may then be viewed or amended as required, and the project handover document may still be printed if required or if alterations have been made. So for more information about Contract Controller, you can always go to our website, www.contractcontroller. But now we're going to show a live presentation of converting a quotation to a contract. Okay, so let's look at how we convert a contract to a quotation in a live situation. If you go to Departments, Production, Contracts, and then select Convert Quotation to Contract, enter in the current quotation number. Now this has to be the last and current quotation that was submitted to the client. So if I was to put in 2860, the system doesn't recognize it because there's an R1. So I need to put 2860 R1, and you'll see that the system recognizes it. Now at this point, if you think, hang on, no, I don't want to do this yet, click Cancel Conversion, and the quote won't be converted. So we go back to convert it, Production, Contracts, Convert Quotation to Contract. So 2860 R1. So it loads the quotation. Now you can see here multiple bidders quotation sent to. If at the point of preparing the quotation, you've got multiple bidders, i.e. several contractors have asked you for the price, at that point of doing the quote, you don't know which one is going to be the client. So the quote would have been completed without a customer name, but sent to multiple bidders. If that was the case, all the multiple bidders you sent it to would be shown here. You could then select the company that you wanted to form a contract with, and then just select it there. Then that would automatically make the contract to that particular multiple bidder. The multiple bidder will become the client. So once you've loaded your quote, click Create Standard Contract, and then we will go to the screen where we start putting in the required information. Now, again, at this point, if you still think, whoa, hang on a minute, this is the wrong quote, I'm not ready to convert this yet, you can still cancel the conversion. So it still won't be classed as a contract. It will still be in the quotation completed stage. So if I go back to departments, contracts, convert 2860 R1, create standard contract. And now I need to fill in all the areas that enable us to get the contract moving. So first of all, we probably think, well, we've got the full site address now, so we can populate that with the actual site. All the details that you've got there, if you've got a site contact, it might be Phil Jones, his mobile number. His email address. So all the information that you've got at this point, you can see that the quotation was prepared by Barry Jones, and we can now assign our quantity surveyor, our contracts managers, our setting out site foreman, etc. if we know it at this point. If we don't know the information at this stage, we can always come back and add this in at a later date. Now, if I want to assign a QS, we've got select name. These are drop-down lists. By default, it will only show people that are classified with that job description. So if I look at site foreman, you can see we've got Steve Hammer in there. Now, if someone's not there, if you click list all staff, you'll then get every single employee in the system. And then you can pick whoever you want for the various areas. Now, if you pick somebody, think, no, I don't want that. Just use the clear entry made, and that will remove that from there, and that can be entered at a later date if you need it to. Contract terms will be pulled forward from the latest quote. So we can see that the form of contract is standard terms. The valuation is not applicable, therefore it's not applicable for payment days after the certification. Retention held, yep, 2.5% for 6 months, and then agreed payment terms. So we can actually put in other agreed payment terms here if we need to. The site notes are brought forward from the quote. Again, we can add to that if we needed to at this point. We've then got delivery details access. Is pre-booking required? By default, no. Flat pack required? No. Access available by stairs, lift or hoist? We've got ground floor. That can be changed. So you could say we've got a lift and it's small items only. Stairs, access, all okay. Very importantly, we need to say who the invoice is. We've got who the client is, we've got where the site is, but the invoice may be to a different company, different address, or it may be the same. If it's the same, we can simply click set to the client's name and address, and it'll populate it. If not, we could search and enter a different address from the contacts company's details from there. We've then got the customer's purchase orders we need to put in. So even if it was an email rather than an official purchase order, we still put in email and the date that we received it. So at least we've got some record of the client, how the client placed the order with us for this. The contract number, because I've got the system set to populate the inquiry number, quote number, and contract number the same, it's automatically populated it with that. Some systems, if you're using a different numbering system, may enter a different number from your quotation if contracts are running their own sequence of contract numbers. Or you can have the system set to where you enter in the contract number and that will be blank. So you need to enter that in. If it's not entered in and you click create contract, the system wouldn't let you progress without doing it. So now we have the dates of the contract. Again, this doesn't have to be filled in now, but it's handy if you've got the rough details of the contract to enter this in now. So we can say the issued contracts was the 15th, so the contract was agreed on the 15th. We might say, well, actually, it was yesterday that happened, so we can change that to the 14th. Is a survey required by default? It'll say no, but we might just indicate yes, we do want a survey. When is the contractor on site? So this is if there's a main contractor involved, you might want to know when they actually take possession of the contract so you can get on site to do the survey. So we'll say that they're on site on the 14th. So when are our works going to start? So basically, when do we start processing it in-house? So we might say, well, we're going to start processing it today or yesterday. And when is it completed? So our completion date, let's say it's the 11th of September. So the system would start to populate these timescales based on the information we're putting in. So the setting out starting on the 14th, and how long are we going to have setting out all the pre-contract works? Let's say we'll allow for 3 weeks for that. Now we can see here we've got, i.e. 3 weeks, 21 days, but because our work started on the 14th, we're already 1 day into that period. So when is our manufacturing going to start? So the system will automatically calculate moving on from the 3 weeks. So it's saying, well, it should therefore be the 4th that we're going to start manufacturing. And how long are we going to manufacture for? We'll say it's not a great deal of work. We'll just have 1 week. And when are we going to start the installation? So we'll start the installation on the 14th. It's fine. And it's going to complete on the 11th. Again, these dates can all be changed even after you've initialized the contract. So the other areas we can enter data into is an order acknowledgement. So it's sort of battle of the forms. Your quotation terms and conditions were on the quote when they went to the client. The client's placed a purchase order with you. They may well have imposed their own terms and conditions. Now you want to back with your terms and conditions. So by doing an acknowledgement of order, you've got the chance to put your terms and conditions back on to them. It's also highlighting the fact that the purchase order value for their works is £2,000 to be read in conjunction with our quotation and R1, as you can see there, when it was dated. So that helps the as the contract goes along, so any variations have no omissions that you want to claim for. You've also got an area where you can show the labour analysis. So to help with looking at how long it's going to take in production, the system will be able to open up that quote and then look at how many hours were estimated for the various areas to enable you to see, well, how long do we need it in manufacture based on our quotation. And this can be printed or exported as well if required. So once we've got all the information in for that, we then just click Create Contract. The system will then produce a project handover sheet. So I'll print that and we'll look at that on screen. So looking at the project handover sheet, we can see we've got the contract details, who the estimator was, who the client was, site location, invoice details, contract terms. So basically all the information that we place on screen, but we've got a paper copy that can be passed through to contracts if required. It will also open up the quote and look for any subcontractors that were used, and also list the lead-in times that the estimator made a note of, and we've got the estimated contract hours. So it's quite a good document to put through to production prior to them starting work on it. Once that sheet has finished printing out, we will then be taken to the production status screen, where contracts can double click on an item. We've got the estimated hours in there that are brought through to the scheduled hours, but production can amend these hours if required. So production might say, okay, well, estimating allowed 3 hours. I'm going to reduce that to 2.5 hours because I don't want to tell the machining that they've got quite so many hours to do. That's covered on another area of the system. So once that has now been converted to a contract, we can click Save and Close. And then you'll see now, because I've got all the current contracts listed on my dashboard, you'll see that that is now listed as a contract. So if I needed to change any of those items that we did on the initial conversion, simply open up the contract and go to your contract details, and it's exactly the same screen. So we can make any changes to dates, text that we entered in at that point. And we can also print another copy of the project handover sheet if we wanted. So that's basically all there is to converting a quotation to a contract. Now, if you're creating a contract without a quote, pretty much the same principle. Simply go to Departments, Production, Contracts, then create a contract without a quotation. So you'll basically have to set up all the preliminary stuff that you would have done with a quotation, with who the client is, where the site is, and etc. But then you can then move to the contracts details screen to enter in all the other areas. Okay, as you can see, if we try and save something without information being entered, the system will reject the entry. So I'm just going to cancel that entry. So that's all there is to converting a quotation into a contract.